The Chinese first arrived in America in the 19th century to work in the gold mines and help build the Transcontinental Railroad. Now, since then, they've made countless contributions to American society and have captivated Western palates with their cuisine. Virtually every town in the States has Chinese restaurants. Recent estimates reveal there are about 40,000 Chinese restaurants nationwide. It's official, the most popular cuisine in America is Chinese. Joining us to talk about this phenomenon is Yong Chen, the author of Chop Suey USA, The Story of Chinese Food in America. He is also a professor of history at the University of California, Irvine. Also joining us via satellite from Shanghai to discuss the latest food trends is Clarissa Wei, a food writer, blogger, and entrepreneur who recently embarked on a 2-year backpacking journey across China. As a second-generation Chinese American, she's connecting with her roots through food, traveling to all the provinces of China to learn local recipes and the stories behind them. Clarissa and Yong Chen, both of you, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Dr. Chen, let me begin with you. You're a real expert when it comes to Chinese cuisine and history as well here in America. When it comes to food, it's such an integral part of Chinese culture, isn't it?
It is. It's actually an integral part of every culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's key to understanding the ethnic identity of every culture and also lifestyle and the economy.
But what's so unique about the Chinese cuisine that, you know, that the people of China and Chinese cultures really kind of gravitate to? And it really is a bonding experience, isn't it? You know, when you're greeted in China, they always say, "Have you eaten yet?"
Yes, well, lots of reasons. For Chinese Americans, people say, you know, we don't have a common religion, right? We don't have things like that that hold us together. But the one thing that everyone has in common is food. So we love food. That's
Right.
how we are Chinese.
That's interesting. That's the one bond. That's a good point. Clarissa, let me come to you. You, as I mentioned in the intro, you decided to embark on this journey to go to every province in China to try all the local cuisine. That is a pretty bold thing to do. What made you do that?
Yeah, I think it was when I lived here for study abroad, and I realized, you know, China and the mainstream conversation, people tend to talk about politics and business, but there's so much more to that, to China. And I kind of like to use food as a platform to get people into the homes of locals here and just kind of learn about what day-to-day life is.
So, Clarissa, it can't be easy to be trying to visit all the provinces and meeting new people, trying the local cuisines. What are some of the challenges that you've run into?
In terms of challenge, a lot of it is access to places that don't have public transportation. And right now it's really cold in China, so I just don't really want to go out. But other than that, most people have been very welcoming. I had a friend just invite me to a random wedding, and I got to see the whole process from the beginning to the end. People will invite me into their houses, complete strangers, just because I tell them I'm here to research food. So I think food is a really easy way to kind of get into people's houses and learn about their day-to-day lives.
Well, it's like what Dr. Chen, what you were saying, that it is the one common bond that everyone seems to have. So I'm sure everybody warmly would welcome somebody to try their cuisine, right?
Exactly. You know, in the Chinese American community, it's very divided along political lines, religious reasons. But then, you know, people can forget about the differences when they come to food.
Makes sense, makes sense. Let's talk about the evolution of Chinatowns here in the U.S. As I mentioned in the intro, Chinese immigrated here for the mining and then also to build the railroads. So they had to create these communities, really, to create some sense of home.
You have to also remember that in the 19th century and even early 20th century, there was a lot of hostility, racism against the Chinese, right? So the community also functioned as a safe harbor, right? And so that it provides a sense of community and protection from physical and verbal abuse.
Right.
And Chinatown also functioned as a launch pad for Chinese American cuisine.
Right,
So
restaurants, right.
Yeah, in
sure.
other words, when Chinese food first arrived, no one liked it in mainstream America.
Right.
People hated it. they use the words like repulsive
Oh, man.
to characterize Chinese food. So the only place Chinese food could be protected, developed, that's in Chinatown.
Isn't
That's
that
in Chinatown.
amazing, that evolution from that period of time to now, where it's a mainstay
The most
in
popular
American
cuisine
culture?
in America.
40,000 Chinese restaurants. That is phenomenal.
Exactly.
Clarissa, for you, what I find fascinating is that when you went to China, you were actually writing about American cuisine in China and how that was being received. What did you learn about the Chinese perspective of American cuisine in China?
In terms of American cuisine in China, for a lot of Chinese people, it's kind of like KFC is really popular, but if there's higher end places, it's kind of a luxury. People here really like steak, they really like hamburgers. McDonald's is also really popular, so it's kind of a treat that they will treat themselves out to, because obviously the people here do not cook American food at home.
Right, right. And Clarissa, then when you returned, you started blogging and writing about Chinese cuisine here in the States, which obviously, like we just said, there's so much of. What did you learn about Chinese cuisine here and how it was being accepted, embraced, or not embraced by non-Chinese?
Yeah, I think people started to really pay attention to Chinese cuisine, I think, around the early 2000s, but a lot of people just didn't understand regional varieties, which ingredients came from different provinces. And a lot of people couldn't get access to this information simply because they didn't speak Chinese, or they couldn't read Chinese, or look things up in Chinese. So I kind of went in and I interviewed these people, these chefs. I went online and read books that were written in Mandarin, and was able to kind of translate that to the mainstream audience. And I feel like more people are kind of attuned to regional varieties now because of that.
Yeah, they seem to be becoming more sophisticated. Dr. Chen, you wrote a book called Chop Suey USA, and it's all about the story of Chinese food in America.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Why did you decide to write something like this?
First, well, it can be answered in three ways, right? First is personal. When I first came to the U.S., right, I developed a longing for Chinese food. When I was staying in New York City with my Jewish American hosts, right, they took me to various nice places, and fed me very well. But I remained very hungry. It was not a physical hunger, it was a cultural longing for where you belong, right, for familiar foods.
Right.
So that started a sort of a journey in search of Chinese food places in the U.S. Right? That the search also became a journey to understand American history, American society. Okay, and one of the questions that became so important for me, and also it's the central question of the book, which is why there are so many Chinese restaurants in the U.S. Right? So, so for that, I started to do the research, and also third, I started to understand that doing research on topics like food allows scholars like me to be reconnected to society, to history, right, to what is going on in our communities.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Clarissa, I'm wondering, in terms of all your journeys thus far, have you experienced something that you were so surprised by in terms of the cuisine, or even the attachment, the stories behind the cuisine?
Yeah, what's kind of fascinating is that every single city I go to, there is a handful of dishes that are unique to that city. And I don't really think you can find that in America at all. For example, in Nanjing, it's salted water duck. In Yangzhou, it's Yangzhou fried rice. And these dishes kind of become a mascot in these cities. And government officials, will praise them when people come and visit, and everyone in the city has something to say about that. And also just the amount of food that people eat here. In Nanjing, they go through 200 million ducks a year. So people not only have a specific dish, but they love that dish to death.
Wow, and 200 million ducks to death, yes. Well, Clarissa, as you know, we have some food on set right now, and two dishes that I want you to talk about. We have water-boiled fish. Tell me about the significance of this dish.
Yeah, so water-boiled fish, 水煮鱼, is kind of a Sichuan specialty. It's really, really popular all over the world, actually, even in China, in places that aren't even close to Sichuan. This is a trending dish just because everyone likes Sichuan food because they have peppers, they have peppercorns, and it's just very diverse. So water-boiled fish is essentially a white fish boiled in chili oil, and there's some scallions and maybe a little bit of garlic on top for flavor. And it looks really intimidating, but it's really not. You kind of want to just spoon it over a bowl of rice.
Right,
and
definitely.
This is a traditional dish that's typically found in Sichuan.
And then the dumplings. People love dumplings, but is it a New Year's tradition to have dumplings? And I will say, I'm going to give my sister-in-law props. She makes the most incredible dumplings, handmade, just delicious. So I eat them up whenever she makes them. So this is a favorite, I think, amongst most people, isn't it?
Yeah, dumplings are actually more prevalent in northern China for Chinese New Year's, and there's a lot of symbolism behind them because they kind of look like gold ingots the way that they're folded. So kind of the folklore here is however many dumplings you make is how much money you will gain in the new year. So the more dumplings you make, the more money. The more dumplings you make and eat, the more money you will gain. Whereas in the south, where I am now in Shanghai, people here like wontons much more, but it's kind of the same concept.
Okay, I will remember that next time I have some dumplings then. And Dr. Chen, we also have two dishes that are very popular here in the U.S. when it comes to Chinese cuisine, right? We have orange chicken, and we have lo mein.
Lo mein, yeah. These are among the most popular dishes in what we call Chinese American cuisine today. And they also represent change over time. For example, orange chicken, the popularity of that dish is very recent. So, things like this you don't normally find in a restaurant in China.
Right.
So,
this is really typically
American
right?
lovers of Chinese food often were surprised whenever they went to China.
Yeah.
To realize that they couldn't find the foods.
Right. There's where's the Kung Pao chicken?
Exactly.
Right?
Well, Kung Pao chicken actually we have in China, so it's also a Sichuan dish. There are many stories behind it, right? Different versions about how you started. But in the U.S., we sort of people, the chefs, the restaurant owners, they modify the dishes to tailor to American palates.
Right.
Yeah. So, for example, in dishes like this, we add more sugar, right? We thought, Americans all have.
Americans have that sweet tooth.
Yeah, sweet tooth. Right?
Okay.
They all love things like that. And dishes like this become brand names, and to become very easy for Americans to remember and recognize.
Yep.
So,
and that's why they're so popular.
That's why they're so popular. That's why Americans never liked very sophisticated delicacies, so to speak, in Chinese cuisine.
Well, Clarissa Wei, thank you so much for joining us from Shanghai. And Dr. Chen, it was wonderful having you here in the studio. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure and honor.